set up this place in Menlo Park.
But you already had this property here then up in Lone Pine at that time, I guess. If you said you were in the other house?
There was a salesman that lived here. He's a wonderful human being, a wonderful person, and Al and he made good friends right away. And also, I made good friends with him. He was a really wonderful person. And he let us come here and be here. We didn't invest in anything as yet, but he was perfectly willing, because the land wasn't moving very fast around here at that time. So he was willing to let us use there's an old cabin there, and so we would come and use this. And then Al got associated with people in Southern California, and some pretty bright people there he would bring up and give them LSD here. And I would join them from time to time. And I got where I really loved this area, and I liked it so much that after a while I decided to buy it. And at first I thought that I would share it with Hubbard, and apparently the cost went up some. Originally, I think it was $500 an acre, and then when I wanted to buy it, it was $1,000 an acre. So that was okay with me, and Hubbard says, I'm not going to do that. That's too much money. So that was one of the luckiest things that ever happened to me, is he didn't participate, and I bought the land myself. So I bought 40 acres.
Otherwise, you might have bought it for him, as I understand it.
Well, I tell you, yes.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we ought to go back to... Gene, your first experience was in Death Valley, and so I guess it was pleasant enough that you decided to have another experience.
And yes, and then Myron and I got married, so there was no question.
No turning back.
I knew I'd get a lot of fringe benefits from marrying Myron, and so then he was always willing to try something, and that's why we started using the MDMA, because a dear friend of ours had done some experimenting with that. What he called it the two martini feeling. So we started taking MDMA along with other compounds. And so it's been continuing, except for lately we haven't done very much, but
so
then it became illegal, and it sort of put the damper on. We couldn't talk about it.
But you found that these were some of these substances better for relationships, some of them were better for individuals. I mean...
Yeah, we found that MDMA was excellent for couples. And then, of course, I forget the names and titles of the others, but some were good for this and some were good for that, and some were fun, some were not fun.
One I heard mentioned, I guess I read it in one of Myron's books, that I've never tried is 2CE, and I don't know anything about that.
Oh, that's one of the very best.
We loved it because the E for me stood for energy. You got a very nice energy from that. Very lovely stuff, yeah, I remember that.
Did it have the empathy that... MDMA did, or was it just...
No, it's more... It's probably more like LSD, but it's a powerful substance, and you learn a great deal from it. I think for quite a while I thought it was even better than LSD.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really saying something, because I know you're a fan of LSD.
Yeah.
I don't know where we should go from here.
Well, I might just add a little bit here.
Yeah.
That, we were very interested in these compounds, and every chance we got, we would try to participate. And there were a lot of new things that came up, and so we tried them, and some of them we liked a lot, and there's one or two that are pretty powerful that we didn't care if we never saw them again.
Do you want to mention any of those that you wouldn't care if you ever saw again? I think that's important information.
The Aleph? You remember the Aleph?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were pretty wild.
The what?
Uncomfortable.
The Alex? Yeah, why don't you...
Oh, well, it's written down somewhere. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That happened. That was a long time ago. But there was a series called Aleph.
Well, there were several things that seemed promising and were powerful, but sometimes it was just too much to handle, and so there are other things that you could sort of grow into more gradually and keep expanding that way. So
you mean too much to handle from a body standpoint or just mental?
Well, both.
Both, yeah. The question I want to ask is, you two have done so much work with together and with other couples, but have you ever, taken MDMA and danced all night, or have you ever done it what's called recreationally?
Well, since you brought that up, I'll say yes. That's one of the things that we like to do. Jean and I would often, after an experience, and it would be different things. Mescaline was very good. Of course, LSD was our favorite. There were other things that we used, and a lot of times toward the end of the day, we'd turn on the music and dance, and just had a ball with it.
So you don't have an objection to the recreational end of the medicines, is it?
Oh, not at all. What I'd like to say is we were first introduced to these things while we were living in the Bay Area. And then we decided to move out here, and we did. We had this house constructed, and we moved out here, I think it was in the 1978 is when we finally moved out here. And by this time, we'd had quite a bit of experience with a lot of different substances, and we thought they were valuable, and we thought that maybe we could contribute by exploring with other people and seeing how others responded to it. So for some, I'd say maybe 15, 20 years, we were seeing people very regularly. Sometimes we were have people come every weekend. If it got too much and it was getting too much for us, we'd skip a week or two. But we were having people come on a regular basis, and we would use these different substances. It's kind of interesting how people react differently. I think 2CB was one that we thought was pretty good. And then we had some very close friends. They'd been close friends for 20, 30 years. And actually they had gone through the LSD treatment in Menlo Park when it was legal, and we were providing that function. And they came here, and we used the 2CB, and boy, they didn't like it at all.
Really?
And I was really surprised because we thought it was pretty good. But the thing is, you see, people don't know some of the deep things that carry within our consciousness. These are repressed materials, and they're quite a load to us. And actually, it's of enormous benefit to be willing to go into that, move into it, discover what it is, realize what it is, and be able to release it and be free. And when that happens, that's an extremely freeing experience. It's just like taking a load off of yourself. And so we like to encourage people to do that. But every once in a while, you find people who are up pretty tight, and it's almost too much. But with those kind of people, what we would do is we'd go through some, and a lot of times they were too resistant and didn't want to go too far. They'd come back another time and have them break through a little more, and hopefully after 3 or 4 times they would open up pretty much and get into a lot better space than they were before. So they're